When British comedian Lee Evans announced his tour in early 2013, tickets sold out instantly, shaping up to be his biggest tour ever. The biggest comedian in the UK was at the height of his fame, filling arenas full of people night after night that most pop stars couldn't dream of doing. But just as the tour was coming to an end, he made an announcement no one saw coming.
How much longer do you see yourself doing that for? Do you have a game plan?
This is it?
No, really?
Finished? It's the end.
At the peak of his fame, he decided he was done. So sudden that members of the audience thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. 10 years on, Britain's funniest man and one of the most successful stand-up comedians of all time has disappeared from the spotlight entirely. Born in 1964, Lee grew up in the English county Essex. From the start, it was clear comedy ran in the family. His dad, Dave Evans, was a working-class nightclub entertainer. While most kids' bedtime stories came from books, Lee's came from backstage, smoky clubs, cheap suits, and the sound of applause. He spoke about being bullied at school, called names for being small and awkward, the weird kid who didn't quite fit in, so he took up boxing, which became his first love, and only gave it up when he didn't have money to fund the hobby anymore. So instead, he did what he'd later become famous for. He made people laugh. Humour became his armour. He'd clown around, pull faces, and do impressions of teachers just to get through the day. That survival instinct, the need to make people smile so they wouldn't hurt him, would become the foundation of his entire act. After finishing school, Lee didn't have a plan. He tried art college, worked a few odd jobs, even played drums in punk bands around Bristol, but nothing stuck. He married his wife Heather Nudd at only 20 years old, and then, almost by accident, he started performing comedy in small clubs and pubs around the area, following in his dad's footsteps. But Lee's version of comedy wasn't like anyone else's. Where other comedians stood still with a mic and a pint, Lee treated the stage like a battlefield. He'd sprint from one end to the other, sweat pouring down his face, arms flailing, throwing himself into every joke like his life depended on it. And in a way, it did. Every performance was a release. Years of bottled up energy, nerves, fear, and love all exploding on stage. He wasn't the cool, laid back comic. He was chaotic. By the late 1980s, he was performing regularly across London's comedy circuit. He wasn't making much money, but audiences couldn't take their eyes off him because he was unforgettable. The short comedian drenched in sweat and a baggy suit.
Forgive me if I get nervous and stuff. I do get nervous when I come on, and no, I tried everything. I tried everything to get rid of my nerves. I used to smoke. I gave up. I used these new Nicorette patches. You know these things? Oh, they're brilliant. No, I swear, you put one over each eye and you can't find your flags.
His comedy wasn't just stand-up, it was physical theatre. In 1993, he won the Perrier Award at the Edinburgh Comedy Awards. This award put him on an even bigger scale. He made his big TV breakthrough on The Late Show and the Royal Variety Performance, and it was a turning point. Overnight, he went from underground favourite to national obsession. The following year, he got his own Channel 4 series, The World of Lee Evans, a sketch show that captured his unique style, slapstick chaos with a surprisingly emotional core. People compared him to Jim Carrey, but there was something more vulnerable about Lee. He wasn't trying to look cool or confident. He looked constantly panicked, like a man seconds away from a disaster. And that's exactly what made him so funny. Even in his early performances, you can sense the nerves, but it didn't change anything. It just made him more relatable. He'd talk about the small, awkward moments of everyday life. Trying to open a packet of crisps without making too much noise. Bumping into someone you kind of know on the street. The horror of a public toilet hand dryer. He'd make normal life look ridiculous because to him, it was. But what really set Lee Evans apart was his work ethic. He wasn't just performing, he was performing to exhaustion. By the end of every show, his suit would be soaked through, his shirt untucked, and his face bright red.
Is it true that you go through a suit a night when you're on tour?
Yeah. Actually, most suits just start to fall to bits after about 3 days. And then after 3 days, they pack their own case and leave. In the old days, I couldn't afford to get more than one suit. So the one suit, it was a nightmare. I mean, after about a year of touring, it just looked like a little kid suit, you know, with shorts and all that.
Lee would rehearse every single moment, every twitch, every stumble, over and over again until it looked spontaneous. He once said, "If people are paying to see me, I'll give them everything I've got," and he meant it.
This is going to sound a bit mad, but I do feel responsible, overly so, and it's really tiring because you think, oh, I know that these people have paid money to see you. You're very privileged to be able to do it because of the old days when we had nothing, and it's really good to be doing this nice gig, the things you sort of dreamt about doing film when you were a kid, you know. And I do absolutely 24 hours a day think about that. When we're on tour, I think, no, and you get blokes on the stage door go, we had so-and-so here last week. They just don't have to sign nothing, just go. And you're like, no, I'll stand there, I sign stuff if people have come to see us. And I do, absolutely, I really do feel a responsibility for people that have paid their money to come and see us.
These habits and his expressive personality made him a perfect fit for movies. So when film roles started coming in, he took them. Funny Bones in 1995, The Fifth Element in 1997, and a year later, There's Something About Mary in 98. Playing opposite Cameron Diaz and Ben Stiller, Lee held his own in one of the biggest comedies of the decade. In the space of 5 years, he'd gone from small gigs to Hollywood blockbusters, but no matter how big the movie roles got, his heart was always in stand-up. By the early 2000s, his tours were massive. In 2002, he released Wide and Wonderful at Wembley, his first arena show. The scale of it was mind-blowing. He wasn't just performing in theatres anymore. He was selling out Wembley Arena night after night. The Wide and Wonderful show sold over 230,000 tickets, setting records at the time. When it released on DVD later that year, it broke sales records, going multi-platinum and becoming one of the best-selling comedy releases in UK history. And Lee Evans officially became a household name. In between tours, he kept acting, proving he wasn't just a one-lane performer. In 2001, he appeared in the romantic comedy The Martins. 2002, Plots with a View alongside Christopher Walken and Naomi Watts. The Medallion with Jackie Chan in 2003, Freeze Frame in 2004, and even voice acting in The Magic Roundabout in 2005. And that isn't even me listing every movie he appeared in. He was performing in West End productions like The Producers too, all whilst writing his comedy. The XL Tour in 2005 was another sellout success. A 59-date tour filmed at Manchester Arena and released as a DVD that sold more than his last. By now, Lee was the biggest live comedian in the UK. He pushed harder. In 2008, he returned with the Big Tour, a 59-date tour across the UK's biggest arenas. With over 500,000 tickets sold, it became the biggest stand-up tour in British history. He followed that up with Roadrunner Live in 2011. This time, 67 arena dates in front of 600,000 people. He was now performing in front of more people in one tour than most artists do in an entire career. But even as the arenas got bigger, Lee's personality stayed the same, or if anything, his confidence only increased. When speaking with interviewers, Lee would explain how he still didn't understand why anyone came to see him, and he'd still apologise when people were screaming his name. The truth was, Lee Evans was too humble for fame. Now, I'm not a comedian, but my subscriber count is a joke. So what I need you to do right now is go down, subscribe to the channel for weekly videos exactly like this, and I'll make you a promise. If you subscribe to the channel right now, by the end of the video, if you think it's shit, you can unsubscribe twice. That's my offer. In 2013, Lee announced the Monsters Tour, 65 shows, including 14 nights at the O2, sold out, becoming the biggest comedy tour of 2014. As the tour came to a close, he made an appearance on the Jonathan Ross Show where he announced that this was his last tour, and after a brief bit of laughing, the audience realised he was serious. At the height of his fame and money, Lee was ready to walk away.
What's made you think
Well, my manager died last year.
No, he did. That's not a joke.
So I've just continuously worked and done comedy, toured, but I've ignored, I think, for far too long, my missus. And I want to spend a lot more time with her.
In December 2013, Lee's longtime manager and close friend, Addison Cresswell, passed away suddenly, leaving a huge hole in Lee's world. Addison was the man behind so many of Britain's biggest comedians, but to Lee, he was like family. He believed in Lee, pushed him to tour, and helped shape every moment of his career. They co-founded the production company Little Mo Films, which produced Lee's stand-up DVDs, and without Addison, it's understandable Lee felt it wasn't the same anymore. Lee Evans was never bothered about money or fame, and his humbleness was what made him even more likable. And now, he was able to say that's enough and focus on what's important. When he announced his retirement, most people thought it was temporary, a few years and he'd be back with another tour, but he never did. He made a brief appearance in a 2018 theatre play called Pinnacle 3, but as a passion project. As far as comedy, fame and the spotlight goes, shows. 10 years later, and Lee has stayed out of it. When someone asked what happened to Lee Evans on Reddit, a user replied, "He quit while he was ahead, and fair play to him. The guy made a lot of money from tours, DVD sales, and even went to Hollywood. When he turned 50, his longtime business partner, Addison Cresswell, unexpectedly died, and Lee appeared to just think, fuck it, I'm a multi-millionaire with a beautiful family. Why do I need to grind anymore?" So he retired, and is probably having a very nice life out of the spotlight, and it looks like it's stayed that way. With only a few fans or paparazzi spotting him out in public since, Lee's done exactly what he said he would. Heather, the woman he'd married long before the fame, now got his full attention. When speaking about her in interviews, he said he owed everything to her. Today, they live quietly in the countryside, enjoying the fruits of their labor. But for the fans, especially the new generation of fans, they're still hoping that at some point, Lee Evans is gonna make a comeback. If Lee was to do a comeback, tickets would sell out in a blink of an eye. I would love to see him on stage doing his comic routine. I've only seen him on DVD. Such a funny guy. The best stand-up comedian in my lifetime. Wish he was still touring. Fans hope that Lee Evans will make a return to stand-up comedy at some point, but the truth is, does he even need to? Now 61 years old, he spent half of his life on the road, giving every ounce of himself to make people laugh, and for the last 11 years, he's been enjoying that well-earned retirement. He's got his family and his legacy already set in stone. So if Lee Evans ever did come back, it wouldn't be for fame or for money, it would be for the fans. But maybe that's why it's better he doesn't. The legacy left already is perfect. On the internet and through DVDs, there's a time capsule of a man who rose to the top of his field, and instead of chasing material fame or money, he bowed out at his peak on his own terms to prioritize his family. So maybe it's better this way. He left on top, and that's exactly how we'll remember him.